Hello, everyone. I'm Carol Iavana in New York. This is a Fox News alert. Peter Jennings, a man who has been an anchor for ABC News for over the past 5 decades, worked in a news capacity for them for that many years, has died tonight of lung cancer. It was back in April that Peter Jennings announced that he had lung cancer and that his lung cancer was inoperable. Charles Gibson for the network announced shortly after, just a short time ago, that Peter Jennings had died in his apartment. He was part of an experimental anchor team in the early 80s for ABC News, in which there were 3 anchors anchoring the evening news for that network at that time. Shortly after that, he became the sole evening anchor for ABC News and has been so for many, many years. Once again, Peter Jennings, dying of lung cancer this evening. He announced that he had lung cancer back in April. Tonight, he succumbed to the cancer he had been fighting all that time.
Peter Jennings was at his best when news was breaking.
This was an attack on the United States, no question about it. Everybody said it all day, a declaration of war, an act of war.
The worse things get around me, the cooler I tend to be. I tend to focus very hard under pressure.
Well, scene that's been repeated hundreds and hundreds of millions, as far as we know, thousands of times.
But I have indeed lost it on television. I almost lost it a couple of times on 9/11. Most specifically when I turned around to find that my children had called from 2 parts of the country. I think it made me think of a lot of families and their children. I checked in with my children, and who were deeply stressed, as I think young people are across the United States. And so if you're a parent, you got a kid in some other part of the country, call them up.
He loved hockey, history, culture, politics.
I think when you come home and participate in the democratic process, even vicariously as journalists do, I think it's extraordinarily moving.
And he loved trying to understand what drives Americans to work, to play, to dream, to pray.
I've been in search of America ever since I came to America 30-some-odd years ago. All journalists are.
In May of 2003, partially because of 9/11, he said, and partially because of a book he was writing, In Search of America, Peter Jennings finally became an American citizen.
Unlike any other nation in the world, America is an idea. The one thing I learned after living there was that there is no one absolutely essential truth for all people. And that every time I look at a coin, I instinctively want to look at the other side.
The National Cancer Institute says that we are survivors from the moment of diagnosis.
Despite debilitating treatments, Peter continued to make his presence felt through emails and messages and visits to the newsroom. He cared too much about the life he had pursued so intensely to pull back from it. And when he was resting at his home on Long Island on his birthday, July 29th, we, his colleagues, made sure he knew what we were thinking. He looked up and saw a plane and a banner with the wishes of all of us who wanted to have him back. As for how he viewed his role, Peter described it 40 years ago when he was still on the verge of an extraordinary career.
I'm fascinated by everything. There's just too much going on in too many places that I just daren't miss.
He meant every word, and then he lived it. And we will miss him.
You've been listening to the latest news from ABC Radio. This is Peter Jennings, ABC, New York.
And as we said, Peter Jennings died tonight of lung cancer. And I must tell you, from a personal standpoint, it is difficult to watch the pictures because his presence here as our leader and as our anchor was a given. And it is a shock to realize that he will not be here again.
Have a good evening. I'm Peter Jennings. Thanks and good night.